There we go.
We did it.
We did it again.
Again.
Hi, Halie.
Hi. Oh, I just also realized that I'm on my personal and not my Embodied Recovery Community account. Should I switch?
Oh yeah, maybe you want to switch.
Okay. Hi. Hey, Janelle. Okay, switching. Be right back.
Okay. For anyone who's on right now, we're just waiting for my beautiful sister Halie to join. Getting ready to talk about our wonderful upcoming free mini retreat. So excited. Here she is.
Hi. Hi. We did it again for the third time.
I'm impressed
Can
with
never.
every time.
I know, exactly. We can never celebrate that too much.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Happy to be here.
Me too. Me too. It has been a day, but I'm very happy to be here. Okay. Hi, everyone. Oh, hi. Hi, friends. Okay, we're gonna start with a little meditation. So feel free to close your eyes, but you can also just have them open with a soft gaze. And if you're sitting, beautiful. If you're whatever shape you're actually in, invitation to just do a couple neck rolls if that's possible. Just bringing some gentle movement, and maybe that's a full circle. Maybe you just do a little half circle. Let's let that be intuitive, but just beginning to attune to sensation and landing in your body. It feels good to roll the shoulders. Invitation to even like bring the shoulders up to the ears for a moment and then release them down. And then start to notice your breath. And see if you can notice the way that you're naturally breathing. First, without needing to fix anything, change anything. If you notice that you're breathing sort of shallowly in the chest, see if you can bring movement into your whole torso. So feeling the sides of your rib cage expand as you breathe in, and maybe even your back body, belly soft if possible. And as you exhale, noticing the contraction, subtle contraction of your torso, the softening of the shoulders, releasing them down. Just a few more breaths this way. And then we're going to do 3 rounds of Brahmari breath, or bee buzzing breath. And basically what that is, if you're not familiar, is a breath in, and then as you exhale, a humming, like the sound of honeybees. And so you can do 3 breaths your own pace. I'll do my own pace just to kind of keep a loose count, and you can do it with me or not. It's totally up to you. Taking a breath in. Exhale to Brahmari. And then if it feels comfortable for you, invitation to begin to feel quite literally the boundaries of your own body by bringing hands. Perhaps you start with shoulders, just a kind of gentle pressure as you move your way down your arms. Just really feeling the skin, your skin, the muscles underneath, the bones. Aware of where you begin and where you end. And maybe you bring hands to the head. Again, just kind of gently pressing, noticing your body. And if you don't feel like touching your body, that's also okay. You can hover your hands above your body, just in front of it, continuing to either gently press or hover your hands, maybe working your way down your legs, your feet, whatever feels intuitive, accessible, and comfortable for you. Maybe you're even bringing a little massage. My calves are quite sore, so I'm putting a little pressure with my thumb there. We're going to be talking a little bit about embodied boundaries today. And this practice for me is always a nice one to do anytime I'm starting to kind of feel like my energy is scattered or quite dispersed. This coming back to feeling the boundary of my skin sort of helps me to call my energy back in. And then also in a very kind of like pragmatic way, the physical touch, if you choose to touch, and even just the hovering, can be quite soothing for our nervous systems. Just noticing what feels true for you. And then when that process feels complete, perhaps you bring a hand to touch your chest. And if not, you can hover your hand just above your chest. If you're touching, a gentle pressure. And then we'll just take one more breath in together. Open mouth exhale. And then if eyes are closed, you can open them. And if they're open, we'll all meet with eyes open, just taking a moment to slowly look around the room and let your gaze track slowly. And it's as if with your gaze, you're really maintaining a quality of presence with whatever your eyes are landing on, right? I can feel that difference between when I'm like looking mindlessly and I'm not actually really there versus when I can feel that I'm present. I actually notice what I'm seeing fully. So just giving yourself that space to slowly notice and orient yourself to the space that you're in. Knowing that there's no rush. And whenever that feels complete, you can come back to our little screens.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for being here, for joining us this evening. We did a live last week too. That was really fun. And so if you have any interest and you didn't get to watch last week, you can find that on my personal on Embodied Recovery Community account. And this week we're obviously on Lauren. So this live, the recording of it will be on her account. But yeah, we wanted to just hop on here and chat with you about our upcoming free mini retreat that we're doing together called Creating Inner Belonging. And maybe we can start with just sharing a little bit about kind of where we've been and how we have gotten to where we are now with this work. Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I started last week, so why don't you start this week?
Oh yeah, totally. Okay, cool. So, um, so I guess just to start, we talked a little bit last week about the work that we do and how really in so many ways it's centered around embodiment, what it means to fully inhabit our bodies and why that even matters. And so I won't go too much into that. You can watch the previous live if you're interested in that more. But what I will share is that prior to my own kind of like recovery and coming into the work that I get to do today, very much as a result of like my lived experience and my own personal journey. I lived a completely separate life. I studied art history in college, and I moved to New York City, and I worked in art auctions, and I worked for a very corporate company and had a really high pressure, high stress job where I was like, had clients all over the world. And I was like, at that time, it was like we had Blackberries were the cool things, like very connected to my Blackberry at all hours of the day. And I had kind of I had walked the path of what I was told success looks like, right? I had like gone to the great college and gotten a good degree and then got this really great job in the art world, and so much of my identity was really tied into that. And then but all the while I was like also deep in my addiction and really in denial about it, and still, because I was kind of high functioning for a period of time, was able to really kind of put on a facade to the world. Like people didn't necessarily worry about me that much because on the outside it really looked like I had my stuff together, but meanwhile I was drinking and using every day, like hard drugs too, and not and it was just really awful. And yet so much of my identity was tied to, oh, like I'm this New Yorker who works in the art world and I have this really successful job and I make this money and da na 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 na. And when Lauren and I were planning and talking about what we were going to share about, we both have had kind of similar experiences, but and I'll obviously let her share hers, but one of our kind of common things is that I reached a point where I really hit my bottom. I was completely burned out and also simultaneously addicted to drugs, and I knew that I could not keep living the life that I was living. And also, I had no idea how to change or how to do it any differently. And because so much of my identity was tied to the work that I was doing at the time, it felt completely terrifying to even consider what it might be like to change, because it really felt as if like I was going to do that, some huge part of me was going to have to die, and that obviously like touches on our kind of some of our, for many of us, our most sort of primal fear, right? And so my addiction ultimately kind of made the choice for me, and I really hit my bottom and had no choice but to make really massive changes in my life. But yeah, I ended up getting sober, and I've been sober now for more than 6 years, and have been, over the course of the last 6 years, really cultivating skill sets and a career in wellness, which has been a complete, 180 that I never would have envisioned for myself, and also I like couldn't imagine it being any other way. But one of the kind of byproducts of my getting sober and then starting to feel again, and then also was that I in starting to feel, I had a natural movement towards deeper honesty with self, right? Because alcohol and drugs and my kind of like ism behaviors were no longer in the picture. I couldn't lie to myself or lie to others in the way that I used to. And so I started to feel again. I started to recognize what was true for me again. And I'm speaking like so generally. I feel like we can maybe kind of speak to more specific examples as we get more into it. But all to say, generally, because those things were happening, I started to become really aware of like, oh, I'm doing something right now that is not in alignment with what is like in integrity or true for me or what I need or this and that. And so I started to have to, and it's not even a have to, it's I get to and got to and continue to get to learn how to cultivate boundaries for myself, right? I think that one of the greatest gifts of my recovery has been coming into a place in my life where I can feel and know what is in alignment and right for me. And I guess as I'm saying that, I'm also very aware that like we live in a hyper individualistic culture that can sometimes kind of like weaponize that. At the expense of like collective care, and that's not what I am trying to do. But all to say, learning how to cultivate boundaries, learning how to be in my body, to hear and feel what is a yes or a no in me became so essential, because if I was not living in alignment or in integrity with self, I felt that very starkly and I had nothing to numb the reality of that. And so that has been a huge part of my journey, is like, okay, what does it look like to embody healthy boundaries, and be an example of that in my community. And so, yeah, I think I'll probably just stop there for now and then let you go, and then we could talk a little bit more specifically about our offer.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. You have such an incredible way of sharing your experience in vulnerability and honesty and just explaining things so well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I really love how much our stories align. Because as you mentioned, I do have experience, working in the corporate world. And I actually did that, into sobriety, because I've been sober 11 years. So I got sober when I was 20. And I think my next drug of choice, if you will, was I just need to accomplish. I need to get money, power, and prestige to make myself feel okay. And, that's okay. Like, that was my journey. But I, got to sort of the end of that road and realized that it didn't feel right for me specifically. I think a lot of people, I guess I want to be careful not to say, I have a lot of clients that work in, the industry that I used to work in. So I know that for some people, that works for them, and there's still ways to bring wellness into that world.
Totally.
But for me, that didn't work, and I felt called to work in the wellness industry, as you have also. I love also what you just talked about with burnout and reaching a bottom, because, as you're talking about embodied boundaries, and that's going to be something you're, diving into more in the free mini retreat. I'm talking more about body respect, and the two really go hand in hand. And there's so much that can be talked about with each of those topics. And if we're respecting our own boundaries and respecting our own bodies, then that means that we have the choice to not hit a place of burnout. And
Yes.
yeah, because I love how you were talking also about the boundaries and how like it can become this sort of individualistic negative.
Mm,
Because I remember like when I first got sober, I was all about boundaries and like, no, no, very rigid.
totally.
And it didn't serve me and it kept me separate from people. And
Yes.
so what I've learned is that I need to have sort of somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I tend to go to the extreme. I want to have no boundaries or like all the boundaries. And there's somewhere in the middle where like I can communicate my needs and communicate my feelings. And but in order to do that, I have to know myself
Yeah,
and know what it is that I want and be able to listen to my own body.
yeah.
And I mean, it's a journey. It's definitely not. Sorry, my dog is trying to get outside. So let her out.
Nice. Real life happening here, peeps.
Life on the farm. So yeah, and I mean, as far as body respect in particular, it is something that we'll be covering a little bit in the free mini retreat, and also something that will be covered in my upcoming 8-week program, which is the empowerment program. It's not The empowerment program is not specifically about body respect, but it's through the lens of body respect. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, but it did just shift a little bit.
I think my headphones died.
Okay. I can still hear you just fine.
Okay, great. So body respect. Basically, the empowerment program is going to be seen through the lens of body respect. We're going to cover a range of topics, but in order to have respect for our own bodies, there needs to be a lot of work that kind of goes into that, leading up to it. And there's so many different aspects to it, which is why I love using the chakra system, because it really covers like every possible topic and, helps to find just respect for ourselves in all of these different from all these different perspectives. And just a little bit about my journey with that is, I struggled with disordered eating for a long time into sobriety. And I didn't realize how much of my life it was taking up. And I work with so many people and just talk to friends that have really similar struggles that it's crazy. I think it's so normalized.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm sorry.
No.
My Bali internet failed me.
Oh, when the internet fails us. It's like, we're so accustomed to it operating the way we want.
Exactly.
You were talking
So
about go for it.
I was talking about body respect and basically my journey to get to where I am today, which started with a pretty significant struggle with disordered eating. And I label it as disordered eating because I think so many people are told that they're not diagnosable as like having an eating disorder, and that means that they don't deserve any kind of treatment or recovery. And I think that that's not true because if food and sort of obsession with body image is taking up more time and energy than it needs to, which is it really doesn't need to take up very much energy other than like how do I feel and am I healthy?
Totally. I so appreciate you. Oh, sorry, go for it.
It's okay if it's taking up more time than that, then it deserves some kind of, it deserves to be addressed. And that's what really inspired me to do the work that I do, because I realized that even though I wasn't diagnosed with an eating disorder proper, it was taking so much energy for me. It was, Christy Harrison from her podcast Food Site calls it the life thief.
Mm,
And I really resonate with that.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that so much, because I think that um that internal experience of feeling like this um issue is renting so much space in our brains and in our bodies, right? Like this kind of obsession. But even if the outside, doesn't look problematic or something like that, it's like if it's renting that much space inside of us, then that is definitely worthy of addressing. And I also just appreciate you speaking to that, because I think that sometimes we can become so accustomed to our own internal dialogue that it's our baseline, right? So we're like, oh, doesn't everybody just think this way, or doesn't everybody obsess about this all the time? Like, isn't this just normal? And so just being able to reflect to people that like there there is another possible way of feeling, orienting, experiencing your life, I think is really powerful.
Yes, yeah, I really agree. And I think that idea can really go to like any kind of struggle, like I think with addiction, it's similar
Mhm.
that, when I got sober, I was 20 and I was in college, and a lot of people told me that I looked like a normal college drinker. And I didn't, because of like privilege, I was protected from a lot of consequences. So,
Mhm.
um, my life seemed functional. And I think because of that, I doubted that I belonged in recovery.
Yeah,
So it doesn't matter like how extreme, it doesn't have to get that bad.
totally. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I also really appreciate what you were sharing about like the way we can operate with boundaries, either like the extreme of having no boundaries at all, or having like too many boundaries. And that's like what that is, right, is like hypo boundaries versus hyper boundaries, right? And that's something that in the we'll dive a little bit into it in the creating inner belonging, but I'll dive into it in depth in this 8-week embodiment practice group that I'm offering called Emergence, which if anybody um, wants to join, where I'm raffling off a space in my Emergence 8-week embodiment practice group, and Lauren is raffling off a space in her empowerment group. And so, but all to say that like having hypo and hyper boundaries are also so intertwined with the kind of state of our nervous system oftentimes. And that's something that I'm really going to talk about a lot of like, okay, if I'm in fight or flight or freeze, or I'm in like fawn or fit in, or also sometimes called appease, like these are all kind of nervous system experiences that we have. It's like how from what place am I saying yes and no? Because like for example, if I'm in fight, and we'll also be really diving deep in emergence into like how do we know somatically that I'm in fight, like how can I tell, because I am such a firm believer that the more aware we can become of our somatic experience, the more agency we actually have, right? If our nervous system is unconsciously running our experience, then we are making choices from a place of reactivity. We're not making choices from a place of kind of conscious response. And so, we're going to really explore in depth all the different nervous system experiences, and like, how do we know when we're having that experience? What are some signs for us individually? And for me, if I'm in fight and I'm feeling like combative, and I'm feeling overwhelmed in that, but having that kind of experience, and I also don't want to give any kind of illusion that we're only ever in one nervous system experience at one time. There's like, it's all very nuanced, and often we're having simultaneous sort of experiences in a sense. Um but for me, like if I'm feeling combative, and I'm in a place of fight, oftentimes my impulse is to just say no, because I'm kind of like, nope, F you. Like that's kind of the energy that I can bring to a situation. And then that no is not actually coming from like a centered place in me, right? It's coming from a kind of reactive place. And I've even had the experience of like saying no to something because I'm in kind of fight mode. And then I settle, my nervous system settles at like 3 hours later. And I'm like, oh no, I actually do want to do that thing, you know? And then simultaneously, like if I am in a place of like fawning or fitting in, and I'm unconscious of that, then probably I'm going to say yes to stuff I don't actually want to be saying yes to, because I'm like appeasing. And so that's also not coming from a centered place. And that's also what's contributing to burnout, right? Of like doing too much, but feeling afraid to say no to something because we're social animals and social engagement is literally vital for our survival. And so if we're operating unconsciously from that place, we can really extend ourselves beyond. And I love what you talked about of body respect, is like knowing like what does your body actually need, and we can extend ourselves beyond that, if our nervous system is kind of unconsciously running us. And so I think like I'm super excited to just share more about this with people and talk more about it, because I feel like we all should have the um the capacity to discern like where is our yes and no coming from. Is it coming from a centered place, or is it coming from a place of reactivity? And if it's coming from a place of reactivity, what kind of reactivity is it coming from? Because I feel like the more we can kind of understand that within ourselves, the more capable we are of being clear about what it is that we do actually want and what it is that we don't want. um Another example that's just coming to me is like, historically in my life, I have had moments where there's a part of me, that desperately wants connection and intimacy with somebody in my life. Um, but I'm also simultaneously really afraid of that and kind of want to run from it. And so if my flight is kind of activated, right? And I'm unconscious of that, then when an opportunity for intimacy occurs, I'm more likely to, interrupt that or turn away from it, or let the fear that might be coming up, prevent that from happening, when actually what is at my center is that I do want that thing, right? And so, yeah, all so interesting. All to say, we're going to be talking even more about the things in our mini retreat, and also in my 8-week embodiment practice group Emergence. And if anybody who's watching is interested in it, feel free to also to just DM me, for if you have any more questions. Um, yeah. And is there anything else too that we should do? Should we do you, well, one that you want to share about, and also that we want to share about creating inner belonging?
I guess we can talk just a little bit about sort of the structure of, what the free mini retreat's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound good?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I know that, something that I think we've talked about that we like to bring into our offerings is that there's this sort of balance between structure and flow. So we do have a little bit of a structure laid out with, opportunity for sort of organic development within that. And we're going to start with a meditation because both of us love to start conversations with that, so that it does come from that place of grounding, like you're talking about, that centered place, not a place of reaction. I found that conversations can go a lot deeper when you start it out with that. And then, as we've kind of talked about in today's little chat, I'm going to go through some principles of body respect and a little movement practice to go along with that. And then, do you want to talk about what you're going to go through?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think we're each gonna offer, we want to really leave y'all with some actionable tools that you can utilize ultimately at the end of the day, when it comes to body respect and also embodied boundaries. And so I will also touch a little more into nervous system. I love to, I tend as a facilitator to like alternate between like teach and then practice, teach and experience, because what I've come to learn and also just feel within myself is that, you know, we live in such an information age, and we can learn a lot and like know it up here, but then we're still not embodying it necessarily. And so for me, that practice piece is really essential. So I'll teach a little bit, and then we'll have a little bit of a practice, and then we also are going to leave you, or what we'll do, we're going to record it also, so if you can't join live, that's okay, you can watch the recording. And also afterwards, we will send you the recording and also send you an ebook of the practices and maybe some journal prompts as well, and then we'll close with a meditation. We'll close with a little bit of grounding. So yeah.
Can set everyone up for the rest of their evening or wherever they are.
Totally. Yeah.
Good day.
Yes. Yeah. And so if you're interested in joining, you can visit the link in either one of our bios, and sign up for free. And then also, again, just we'll reiterate that we're each raffling off a space in my 8-week embodiment practice group. And my one request with that is that you only join if you can attend at least 7 of 8 of the sessions, which I ask simply to kind of really keep the container tight. And it starts on September 30th, and it'll be every Thursday for 8 weeks from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific time. And you can also find more information about it on my page if you want to take a look.
That sounds like such an amazing offering.
Thank you.
And my empowerment program, which I'm also raffling off a space for, if you watched the IG Lives recordings, is fine too. And if you join the free mini retreat, again, you can come live or watch the recording. So the empowerment program is also 8 weeks long. It starts October 17th, and it is Sundays at 10 a.m. PST, 1 p.m. ET. And it will be for 90 minutes every Sunday for 8 weeks. So yeah, I think that about covers everything. I don't, I want to leave a little bit for surprise at the free mini retreat.
Yes. And then also I'll just say again that if you want to enter the raffle, then you can DM both of us. And that's how we'll enter you. Okay, cool.
Well, it was amazing chatting with you as usual, and yes. I'm really looking forward to our upcoming offerings.
Me too. And thank you everyone so much for watching. It's so fun to do this. And we'll probably keep doing it because it's been really fun. All right. Love you. Bye, everyone.
Love you. Bye.